Now recognizes the gentleman from Florida who I have read is on the short list to be potentially the next Vice President of the United States. Mr. Donalds, from 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ambassador Regan, thank you for being here. Earlier this year, the D.C. Circuit, the D.C. District Court here actually invalidated EPA's designation that allowed the state of Florida to process Clean Water Act permit applications, a process that's been in place for the last 3 years. Our concern, obviously, in the Sunshine State is that EPA agreed to essentially give us primacy in going through that permit process as opposed to having to go through the Army Corps of Engineers. In short, does the EPA still stand beside the decision to give the state of Florida primacy with respect to proceeding with 404 permits for the Clean Water Act and Endangered Species Act?
I believe that is the case, but let me circle back before I give you a definitive answer on where we are with that process.
You believe you're still with us, or you're not? I want to make sure I get it clear.
Yeah, I believe we are still following what the court has told us we should do, which I know there was a court ruling, and I know there was some consternation there. So let me circle back with you to see exactly where we are on that case.
Okay. The reason why I bring it up, and it's important for our state, since we've taken over that process from the Army Corps, permit applications have, in terms of time, have decreased from roughly around 2 years to 6 months. Obviously, the Sunshine State is, if not the fastest growing state in the country, one of the fastest growing states in the country for a myriad of reasons. So our ability to process these permits, where yes, we do have a lot of waterways that are critical to the ecosystem of Florida, and we take that very seriously in my state. But I think it's important that whether it's Florida or any other state that has that flexibility, that you do have state administrators and state personnel with respect to environmental protection who do take this incredibly seriously, and being able to partner with EPA in order to be able to still process these applications that are important for our economy as well as our environment. That's something critical for us going forward. I hope that the EPA agrees with that.
Absolutely, and as a former state regulator, I definitely understand the importance of the delegated authority, and I believe how we got to this situation where there were some concerns about the administration of the program, and I don't know if we resolved those or not, but I think the court has spoken on that, and so I'll circle back with you to see where we are on that.
Okay, all right, thank you for that. I want to switch gears. Obviously, the EPA came out with the Clean Power Plan 2.0. My concerns are with a couple of things, but primarily 60% of all electricity generation in the United States comes from coal and natural gas. Under the EPA's Clean Power Plan 2.0, essentially coal will be regulated out of existence, and there will be additional burdens put on new natural gas plants that may or may not come online in the United States. Considering your previous statements about wanting to make sure in this hearing that nobody in our country is left behind when it comes to having a clean environment and a clean water, clean air, et cetera, for our citizens, isn't it also a concern that if that plan goes into effect and the power generation that we typically use right now would go away, that electricity prices would skyrocket on poor families, whether they may be black families, Hispanic families, white families, that their costs would go up exorbitantly under that same plan? Wouldn't they be left behind by the Clean Power Plan?
Well, we spent a lot of time with the industry, with the grid operators, and here are the facts from our vantage point. Number one, these control technologies don't have to be put in until 2020, 2031, 2032, so we're talking about some time down the road. Number two, all of our cost estimates say that the actions we're taking will only potentially increase price by less than 1%. And number three, that the approach we're taking, because of the diligence that we've done, will not have any impact on reliability. To the point we were just discussing, this national rule is delegated to the states, and each state will design a state implementation plan that gives it flexibility on how it reaches these goals.
Administrator, I got to cut you down because we've got 20 seconds,
sure.
Congressional hearings. I'm going to respond with this. Whenever we get information from experts who say that costs will be contained in a certain strata, that typically is not the case. Even with the tax credits with the Inflation Reduction Act, CBO said it would cost around $260 billion. Wall Street is saying the value of those credits is upwards of $1.3 trillion and higher. So when you say that essentially regulating out coal and some aspects of natural gas in the United States will only lead to a 1% increase in electricity costs, that simply does not add up. And at the end of the day, whether it's 2024 or 2032, it is poor people in this country who are going to be left behind by that type of proposal. Chairman, I'm over my time. I yield back.
Thank you kindly, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Regan, let me just follow up on that, because I do think that there's a significant philosophical difference that was just surfaced in the colloquy between Mr. Palmer and yourself. There's no doubt that there's industry that wants more of a freedom to pollute without having environmental rules imposed against them. But your purpose is to defend the freedom to breathe clean air and drink clean water and have a safe working place. And I wonder if you would describe what the mission of the EPA is.
Well, the mission of the EPA is to protect public health and the environment, look at cost-effective technologies to do so, and ensure that this country can remain globally competitive. And I do that in concert with state regulators in blue and red states, but also actively engaging industry to come up with the right solutions.
And that's a mission that has been, for a lot of American history, a bipartisan one. It was under President Nixon that the EPA was first created, right?
Correct.
And so there's nothing that should be partisan about the pursuit of clean air, clean water, clean working conditions. Do you agree with that?
I agree with that.
Okay. I wonder, what is your perspective on what would happen if the proposals in the Project 2025 blueprint for a mega takeover of government were implemented? What would happen if all of the rules that they want to repeal at the EPA were repealed?
Well, listen, I think when you look at the massive cuts that are being suggested, we won't get new pesticides, new registrants on the market. We will significantly hurt our agriculture industry, reducing the herbicides that we can get on the market. We won't clear all of the litigation that's tied our hands to get chemicals on the market that we rely on every day. Listen, we would have significant impacts to our water quality. Emerging contaminants like PFAS would run amok. We would continue to have lead-poisoned water all across the country. We would not be able to look at how to clean up brownfield sites and benefit not just from a health standpoint, but from the economic vitality and opportunity of cleaning up these blighted sites. The list just goes on and on. America needs a strong EPA.
I remember when Donald Trump took out his Sharpie and purported to change the direction of a hurricane. I think it was Hurricane Dorian. Back in 2019, but he basically said it was not going to hit the Florida coast, it was going to hit Alabama. And he did this without any consultation with the National Weather Service, or NOAA, where the National Weather Service is located, and then it created huge confusion and consternation. I mean, what would happen if we replaced professional, scientific, civil service management of agencies like the Weather Service or NOAA or the EPA with political flunkies, basically, people who are just willing to say whatever the president wants to say? What would that do to our ability to have effective public policy if science is something that could just be made up by a president?
If we don't follow the science and have qualified people in these positions, Americans will die. We have a role to play, and we need to be able to predict the weather. We need to be able to respond to the weather. We need to be able to alert the public that if danger is coming their way. And once many of these communities are hit, whether it's a wildfire or a flood or a hurricane, we need to be able to go in and be activated to help bring those communities back to life, whether it's Maui, Hawaii, or whether it's East Palestine, Ohio, or Jackson, Mississippi, when a city is hit, we need experts to come in and ensure that there's clean air and clean water.
So how have you regarded the war on science and the war on public health that we saw during COVID-19? We saw in this committee when Dr. Fauci came the other day, we had members of this committee accusing Dr. Fauci of having created COVID-19 and profiting from it. How do you experience that attack on science in terms of your ability to get your work done?
Well, it's threatening reality and the facts. And what we've done under this administration is restore scientific integrity, which, by the way, industry, businesses, all of our economic partners applaud us for doing this. We're saving lives, and we're putting pragmatic, practical regulations in place so that we can provide many of our industries regulatory certainty. They need to have regulatory certainty so that they can make the proper investments.
So would you say that the success of the EPA depends on the integrity of the science that goes into it, and you are threatened by the political science of the MAGA people who say we want to dictate a political agenda to people who work for EPA or the Weather Service or NOAA?
Politics of no party has any role in scientific integrity. And if we don't remain in a place where we're transparent and bolstering our scientific integrity, we will lose the trust of the public. Scientific integrity is at the core of EPA's mission to protect all people.
Thank you very much for your hard work, and Mr. Chairman, I yield back to you.
All right. Chair now recognizes Mr. Higgins from Louisiana for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Administrator Reagan, you said you don't want to lose the trust of the American people. Too late. It's already happened. Economic prosperity is the cornerstone of societal advancement worldwide. And the cornerstone of economic prosperity is affordable, abundant, transportable energy product. Ladies and gentlemen, and you young Americans across the country, please join me in loving your planet and living your life in a manner that you intend to protect your planet for future generations by recognizing that economic prosperity worldwide is a #1 driver of clean air and clean water and reduced pollution worldwide. So the energy product that the world consumes, including the fuel that you use to get here, the petrochemical products produced by the fossil fuel industry that Mr. Reagan is wearing upon his back, that clothes that you're wearing, the carpet upon which you're standing, the finish on the chair where you're sitting, the petrochemical products that make up 100% of the phone or the computer that you're typing on is consumed worldwide. Our world being one, if you're concerned about the ecological impact of mankind upon your planet, and you recognize that mankind is going to consume petrochemical product, then you would want it produced in the region of the earth where it's produced the cleanest, under the most stringent regulations and the most industry-driven technological advancement to deliver clean, affordable product. That's the United States of America. Men like Mr. Reagan have carried a torch 100% driven by an agenda to smash the American energy industry. He's the one that's agenda driven, not me. The American energy industry and the American petrochemical industry is, with no debate, the cleanest producer of affordable energy product and affordable petrochemical product in the world. And every one of you consume it. Own that. Because that's where we are. In the future, I have no doubt that there will be a gradual transition to things unknown. This is the nature of life. It's the way things roll. But to have an agenda-driven Green New Deal, anti-American energy, anti-American petrochemical agenda shoved down our throat by an administration that claims it's doing so on behalf of protecting the world's ecological stability, by forcing the production of these products into regions of the world that have far less concern about their ecological impact. That is hypocrisy at its worst. And I, for one, am going to use every authority that Congress allows me to legally wield to push back against it. Mr. Chairman, I ask for unanimous consent to enter into the record the Joint Resolution 161, a joint resolution calling for the reversal of the EPA rule submitted by this gentleman and his department.
Without
Unanimous consent.
without objection, so ordered.
Mr. Reagan, do you have plans for next year, sir? You have plans for next year?
I have plans for every year.
What's your plans for next year?
Well, my plans are personal. And I don't.
Well, I'm asking
I
you
don't know
professionally.
Well,
you have plans to
I'm not
continue
obligated to-
your battle that you're carrying that torch for.
With you just assaulting me and saying I'm un-American.
You think
now
this
wanna
was an
know-
assault?
Now you want to know what my plans.
We definitely living in two different worlds.
Oh yeah, we are in two different worlds.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Chairman,
I appreciate
I have an inquiry.
this
Mr. Chairman,
hearing being
Mr.
convened.
Chairman, I have an inquiry.
Gentleman from Maryland, Mr. Mfume.
I'm going to
I have-
reclaim my
I have
time.
And you have time left, Mr. Higgins. Mr. Mfume.
I have an inquiry.
Thank you so much, Chairman. Thank you so much, Administrator Regan, for being here. You've been to Detroit, you've been to Michigan several times. I don't think I did get you to come out to meet some of our residents living on Beneteau Street yet, but Beneteau Street on the east side of Detroit is a predominantly black, very working class, low income, poor community, and they have a massive Stellantis auto plant complex in their backyard. It's been making them sick and ruining their quality of life for years. Some can't even have outings outside with their families, barbecues, birthday parties. The odor is unbearable. I've experienced it myself, Administrator. And state regulators in Michigan had issued Stellantis air permits. And they had the public meetings, they did the whole process, but they failed to ensure that they complied with the permit conditions. They were required, Stellantis was required to install pollution controls. And they failed to install them correctly. I think they withheld that information for months. I don't know if it was 6 months, 7 months, it was months. Even though the residents were saying something's wrong here. The odor, something's wrong here, there's something wrong. And again, they did not fix it for months. This is, our residents, one, they didn't feel believed by the state for a long time. But they also believed, wait, why are they always routinely, the state, approving pollution permits that they know are poisoning predominantly black, brown, immigrant, low-income communities across Michigan? So they worked with a nonprofit organization called the Great Lakes Environmental Law Center, and in November, I believe, or in 2021, they filed a Title VI civil rights case, a complaint. Are you familiar at all with it at all?
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay, so Administrator Shore and some of the members of the team at Region 5 talked to me about this. You know this, the EPA was pursuing an informal resolution agreement for more than a year with community members at the table, Administrator, and again, trying to get towards a resolution with the state. And all of a sudden, the state's like, nah, we don't want to talk to them anymore. And EPA was like, okay. Do you know why?
Given that this is an active Title VI case, I can't.
Microphone, make sure your microphone's on.
Given that it's an active Title VI case, it's improper for me to comment on or
Yeah,
speculate.
but it sounds like you guys are letting them off the hook. The leverage that we have and I want you to know, I want them to feel like their lives are important under an administration that says they care about clean air and water, right? And it's hard for me, and no matter who's the president, administrator, I'm going to be very much always about holding them accountable. So as I understand, the law is clear. When there's an informal resolution agreement cannot be reached, EPA must investigate and issue findings that determine whether or not discrimination occurred. Why aren't we doing that? Why aren't we doing that?
Let me take this concern back to our Title VI lawyers and team that's working on
Please.
this, and we will keep you apprised as much as we can.
And Administrator Reagan, this is out of love and respect. I grew up in a neighborhood, honestly, I would come into my house as a little child, Chairman, smelling like rotten eggs. All my friends had asthma. I mean, it's awful. So I'm asking the EPA to take this complaint seriously.
Yes.
Set a precedent that you care and watch, no matter who is the governor, no matter who is in charge. It's important that we're consistent. And Mr. Reagan, you know this, Administrator Reagan, please fight for them like you live on Beneteau.
Mm-hmm.
Fight for them like you live there, because they have nobody else but us.
Yeah.
And we're blessed that we have a nonprofit that took the case, but we can't allow, again, politics and all these kinds of aspects come into play. We have to be consistent. Again, no one told them to look away when months and months and months went with them not complying with their own air permits. You know that. Companies put it in there. They sign it. They should comply with their own air permits, right? And again, I say this on behalf of many of my residents. We are doing good work in progress, but many of the young people, I know them. I have an 18-year-old at home. We're not moving with the urgency still that I think is needed. And implementation matters, you know that. And a lot of folks are not seeing the change they need immediately. So again, I'm here as a partner.
Yes.
And I'm here to bring those folks and those residents at the table with you. Thank you so much. I yield.
Thank you.
And I might add, we've gone on our side over about 1 minute and 45 seconds. I've agreed to yield that much time to the ranking member to get caught up, and then we'll proceed with the majority.
Thank you kindly, Mr. Chairman. And I wanted to pose one question to Ms. Tlaib and then one to the administrator. You just made a very eloquent and passionate brief on behalf of the significance of enforcement, aggressive agency enforcement of the rules that we have under federal legislation. The Project 2025 plan that everybody's talking about, and our friend and colleague from North Carolina, Ms. Fox, talked about the importance of deregulation, that is loosening up regulation. And I wonder what you would say about that in general, and then also specifically about deregulation of corporations at a time that we're also hearing from our friends about the importance of regulating women's bodies and women's choices, with 1/3 of American women not being able to get access to an abortion in America, and also further crack down on birth control and IVF and so on.
No, Ranking Member Raskin, it is bizarre. Even today, thinking about the fact that they consistently want to regulate the bodies of women, but also even the fact that our bodies are more regulated than even around the gun crisis, around the fact that right now, many of our constituents and our families continue to say to me, we have a right to breathe clean air, right? We have a right to access clean water, right, Rashida? Why aren't we working towards that? To allow corporations to have a free will of going ahead, because let me tell you, I don't care if you're red or blue state, they will poison your residents if you let them. They will. And so, shame on those that continue to promote this Project 2025. And again, the sense that corporations have all this free will, and they don't care about our public health. They care about the bottom line. They care about profiting off of the pollution they spew out to residents, especially ones that are currently struggling to even access health care right now.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I'll have to get to the question to you later, Mr. Minister.
Gentleman's time's expired. Chair,